All right, we're gonna try this again. Video one seemed to go pretty well, so we will give this a run through again. We're gonna try to do another kind of live video session reacting to Charticulator. So, I'll do the intro. Hey gang, it's Mike from Power BI Tips. We're gonna jump back into Power BI Desktop. I've got it here located on my screen. This is kind of where we ended on, we'll call it Season 1, Episode 1, where I was kind of just giving my initial reactions to Charticulator. Now I'm going through, and I'm actually going to talk a little bit more about Charticulator and how to build some things. Particularly, we're going to talk about scaffolds on this session. So let's just jump right in. I'm going to start going into desktop, and then we're going to start building another kind of visual and just kind of adjusting and talking more about the properties around Charticulator. So jumping right in, this is where we were last time, and I got to get Zoom It going. So Zoom It, we'll get that up and running here, and let's hide this menu bar here on the side. Forgot to do that so that we get a little bit more space here on the page. Looks great. We'll zoom it in big. Okay, so now we're just back in desktop. Let's go explore the data set real quick here. So just to be clear what we're doing, if I click on this visual down here in the bottom left-hand corner, this is kind of the data we're working with. We have a product column and we have a sales price column, and we're just going to group things in 6 different categories based on product. And that's kind of how we built this original visual here up in the left-hand corner. So let's start again with a new page. I'm going to just click a new page here. And we're going to go grab this Charticulator visual. I've already downloaded it. If you didn't see how I did that, you can go to episode 1 and refer to that. We're going to add another Charticulator preview visual, make it large here. And I'm going to click the ellipsis down in the bottom right-hand corner of this one. This is the more options on this visual. That's how you get into the edit mode of whatever the visual's doing. So clicking the 3 dots, and then I'll click the little first item in the list, the drop-down menu called Edit, and we'll get into into editing. So you'll be brought here into the main window, and you'll notice right away, I forgot to do something. I actually forgot to add data to this. So you'll see right here that the create chart and the import template are both grayed out. They're not available to you. That's because I did not actually create or add some columns to this to actually make this happen. So I'm going to go over here to the fields window, the fields pane, and then I'm going to grab the product and drop it into the data well. And then I'm going to grab the sales price and also drop it into the data well. So going over here, I'm adding these 2 columns and then bringing them over into the data section. This then gives me the ability to create a chart, and the buttons are now highlighted so I can click on those. Creating chart. All right, so now we've got data in here. Now that I have everything I feel like I need here, I don't think I need anything else here at this point. So I'm going to minimize the fields, minimize the visualizations, and just start building some stuff. Now, I kind of went through an overview previously around what Charticulator is and how does it work and some of the feature sets here. Let's make this even bigger. I'm going to click this minimize button up there so it even gets larger. Okay, so we talked about guides before, and guides kind of help you divide your page into equal segments, and those guides automatically adjust based on where you are on the page and the size of the visual. I can actually adjust the entire size of the visual or even the ratio. By clicking the corner here, if I grab this, I can adjust the panel size, whatever this visual is. So if I want it to be more of like a square shape, I can adjust it. You can adjust those manually by punching in numbers over here on the right-hand side. I do recommend thinking through, like, is this visual need to be a square? Does it need to be like a rectangle, tall or long? That way you can at least type in some sort of ratio over here, like 500 by 500 would give me a nice, clean, easy square. And the thing I did on the previous video was I took away all the borders on it and made the visual stretch all the way to the external edges. And I think I kind of like that. So I'm going to take the margins here and go 0, 0, 0, tab, 0, tab, 0, tab, 0, tab. And then this basically brings all of the borders right to the edge or the perimeter of whatever that visual is. Now, I want to point out here, this is what we're going to talk about this time, is there's this thing called a scaffold. The scaffold is what I click on here, and this is actually what's labeled. When I click scaffold, I'm actually building a plot segment. This plot segment appears on the chart layer. And we talked also about these little corner anchors that we can move them around here. So I can actually adjust this. When you get into Charticulator, you automatically get a plot segment that is 2-dimensional, meaning an X and a Y axis, and it appears here on this page. Each plot segment, either a line or a two-dimensional plot segment, each one has the ability of having a glyph or multiple glyphs attached to that visual. But the data objects that belong to that plot segment are all kind of tied or linked together a little bit. So that's what's going on there. So what we're going to do is then we're going to, we have this plot segment here. I'm actually going to remove it. I'm going to start from scratch again. I'm going to bring in a plot segment from scratch. So we're going over here, and we're going to grab these plot segments and move those over there. All right, back to it. We're going to go over here, and we're going to start from scratch. I'm actually going to grab a plot segment. If I click the down arrow, you'll see there are two different options. There's a square and there's a line. So the square segment here gives me the two-dimensional item, and the line gives me some sort of linear just kind of dimension. I'm going to start with the square, and then I'm just going to go on the page, and I'm going to drag it here in the corner and make it here in the bottom left-hand corner. So I've made a two-dimensional plot segment. This plot segment does get a glyph, and the glyph that attaches to it is right here. So if I click this plot segment and then add a mark to it, so I'm going to click here and grab the rectangle. So rectangle, I'll click and drag him over here to the glyph area. This plot segment now gets these bars. Now you'll see there's 6 bars because we have 6 data points and all that's being aligned together there. There's a couple ways you can make the bar heights change, and I'm going to go through one of them now. You can grab the sales price and you can drag it to the axis of the two-dimensional plot. And by doing this, I'm changing the axis data points, and you'll see that it changes and it grows there. Now, this is because the 6 data points are being aligned on each of those marks there. So now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to change the transparency of this glyph, so you can kind of see that there's actually 6 glyphs stuck on that chart, and the position of that square, the center of that square position, is actually on the y-axis. So what I'll do this, and this will kind of help clarify, like, what is it actually doing when it does this? We'll change the opacity. We'll go down to 0.5 on this one. Let's go even a little bit further. Let's go a little bit narrower on the opacity. And you can see very faintly in there, we're stacking those squares up on top of each other. So what we need to do is we need to add some other data to this chart to give some more dimensional access to, okay, this intersection of this data point and the other bar here is going to intersect there. So I can grab the product now, and I'm going to add the product. I'm going to go back and click the plot segment, and I'm going to grab the product here. I'm going to go back over to the y-axis now, and you'll see now that the bars align here. Now, you'll notice that the bar height is not adjusting. So what I've done is the bars are some arbitrary size. There's no data points that are being attached to the individual bars. So now what you're seeing is there is a glyph, and we'll just kind of, for kicks and giggles here, let me put a little mark here in the middle of the glyph so you can see what this data is doing. If I go here, grab a circle, put a little circle here in the middle. Did it drop it in there? There's a big circle. There's a big circle now. All right. I wanted to make it a little bit smaller so it sits kind of in the middle there. And I think I just adjusted the square as opposed to the circle. So let's see if we can adjust the circle. And I'll readjust the square to go back up to the full size. Okay, so square is full size. Circle is a bit too big. I'm going to just see if I can shrink it here a bit. Having multiple glyphs in here is a little hard. Let's pop this out. Click the little pin, pop it out. I really like this feature. This is really nice. The fact that I can zoom it in. Does that zoom to? Okay, zoom to the middle. Perfect. Grab this circle, move that up. Grab this corner, move it down. Okay, it's not gonna be perfect, but it's gonna kind of get the gist of what we're at. This circle kind of defines the middle point or the center point of where this glyph is gonna be showing up on the page. I can't seem to grab that edge. Move it over here a little bit more. Okay, good enough. You can see now there's basically a centroid on top of the bar. And the reason I'm doing this is because I want to show you that the centroid is what is defining the x-axis, and then the point, and then the bar is getting arbitrarily placed on it. So you can think of the centroid of the bar and circle being placed at the intersection of Amarilla and the number that represents that value. And to prove that that works, we should be able to add a text box to this as well. And then we can attach the actual sales price to the text field. So now we can see, yes, in fact, Amarilla is the categorical value and the numerical value is 12,096. So that's actually grabbing that bar and putting the centroid of that bar inside that intersection of those data points. So this is kind of how Charticulator is fundamentally different than what you're doing in Power BI, is you now have like these scales you have to start worrying about. You start figuring out, okay, where do I want the data to start and where do I want the data to end? And so that's why, I'm just giving you context on how that's working with this particular scaffold. All right, I'm going to try to adjust this chart, and I may break it and I have to start over again. But I'm going to remove the y-axis, and instead I'm going to actually bind the data to the bar itself. Okay, so now I'm going to go back up to the plot segment. I'm going to go over here and see if I can adjust this over here to where is okay. Numerical. Okay, I've got too many categories here. Let's shrink some stuff down. I'm gonna minimize. I'm gonna unpin that. Actually, just minimize it. Yeah, I can minimize it. Okay, so look at the layers over here. It'd be nice if it would snap to the other side. That'd be kind of cool. All right, so I've got. We don't really need to mess with the glyph anymore, so I think I can minimize that. Okay, here's all the attributes. Going to the very top here, we've got products. Okay, so this is the x-axis. First, we're gonna go over to the y-axis, and we actually don't want any more data bound to the y-axis. So I'm gonna erase that. And when I erase it, the data points still show you the values because I'm making the text value the middle there. But what I'm not doing, there's no data points bound to the height of the bar. So now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go open the glyph area up. Sorry, just kidding. I don't want to open the glyph area up. I want to pin the layers back in. And then I want to go click on shape number 1. That's the height of the bar. And what I wanted to do was I want the shape of the bar to change. Now this is going to be a bit weird because I think the circles are going to screw stuff up here. So I'm actually going to erase. I'm actually going to erase the circle. So let's get rid of some stuff here. Get rid of that. I'm going to get rid of this circle because that was just there to illustrate a point. The number now is at the centroid of the data bar. Now I'm going to go back over to the plots segment. Nope, I'm just kidding. Shape. And then now I'm going to grab the sales price. And now the attribute of the bar, again, I got more data points that we can bind here. I can take the sales price and then bind that to the height of the bar. And now when I do it, the bar is automatically bound to the bottom, and now each of the bars are changing in height. So technically the glyph goes from the very bottom of this chart, and let's make the bar darker here so we can see that again. Let's change the opacity back up to a darker color. And that number is very hard to read now. And we will rotate that 90 degrees. And now the numbers go up and down the bar. So at least we can see kind of what the numbers are doing. I don't know how to adjust the precision. I'm pretty sure that there's a syntax. Yeah, down here. So if you want to adjust the syntax, this is a 0.0f, meaning 0.1 float. I believe this is a syntax that's used. Yeah, so 0.0 float now allows the bar to be a certain height. And I believe, I'm gonna have to research this a bit more on the outside. I think you can actually do other different data types here, and you can even add commas in here if you want as well, so you can actually start doing some more fancy formatting on this additionally. I'm not gonna cover that in this video. I may do a little bit more homework on that and come back covering how to format that. Let me know in the comments if you would like to see how to format these things, or if that's something that would be interesting to you. All right, moving away from that, now that we've got this chart here, let's talk about the other kind of plot segments, because this is really about plot segments, not about building charts. So the only other plot segment we have now is a linear one, a line. So in the same kind of way here, I can grab this line, I'm going to grab it, and I'm just going to drag it somewhere. I'm going to actually grab it from the corner of the top part of the graph and put it in the left part of the graph. Now, you'll see here, okay, this is interesting. The glyph that we made previously, so we only have one glyph. I made a new plot segment. And now that I made a new plot segment, you'll see that all the bars from the previous chart are being redisplayed on the new plot segment. Now, in this case, there's only a single data axis that we're talking about here. We have the centroid, again, the centroid, that's the centroid of the bar again. The centroid of the bar is being placed in 6 different places all along this bar. And we should be able to see that the orientation, or the starting one, so Amarilla is the first item in the data basically the data frame that's going on here. The Amarilla item is number 1, and so you're seeing Amarilla being represented twice, first place, in both of those two different data sets. Now, let's kind of tweak this a little bit here. I don't want to have the same glyph on the same line 2 different times. I'm going to do something different here. So what I'm going to do is actually I'm going to erase this linear plot segment, erase that, and now I'm going to click the button for a new glyph. Okay, now this is important. We have glyph 1, which is on our existing plot segment, the 2-dimensional plot segment. Glyph 2 is now a new plot segment. So something brand new that we haven't done before. So now glyph number 2 is blank. There's nothing in here. But in order to edit this glyph, we need to add some sort of plot segment to the page to attach the glyph to. So this is a new glyph, and now we can attach the plot segment to it. This is something that took me a little bit to figure out, is the glyphs are kind of driving which kind of visuals you can put on the page, and then you're using a combination of glyph and plot segment to kind of build out what that data element looks like. So now I'm going to click on the plot segment, drag that from the upper left-hand corner, go to the bottom right-hand corner, and now there's no data points on this one. It's clean. We got no information here. And now we can start building a new glyph. Now, we can think about this glyph being portioned. Each data point is on here per the six data points that we have already. So again, we'll go back to our little favorite square. We'll drag and drop him on the glyph area, and now we get 6 data bars all the way across those. Okay, somewhat okay, interesting here. We may want to change this slightly, right? So now the centroids are being attached there. What might we want to do here? Let's, I'm going to do something. I'm going to change where this glyph, this data axis is going. I'm going to move it over here to the left, and I'm going to stretch it out a bit further down to the bottom here. Okay, so now I've got all these different bars. Now, again, this looks like a solid gray bar, but there's actually 6 items there, and you can only really see that when you go into the data bar and actually start changing the transparency. So then the transparency is basically changing. Now we can start adding data points to this, right? So maybe now we want to grab sales price and add it to the width of this. So now the width of those bars are now adjusting. Now, if we wanted to turn this into basically like a bar chart again, if I grab this anchor of the glyph, right? So I have this anchor is evenly distributed across that data axis. Maybe I don't want that. If I grab, I'll grab this and move this over here like that. So now I've got a bar axis. Now the bar height of these bars are a bit too fat. They're chunky, right? So they keep kind of like overlapping each other. Because this is a linear plot segment, the height of the bar, again, there is a property of this, but I don't have any data points defined for it. So let's turn the opacity up a little higher so we can see that they're there. And then if I go into the glyph properties, so down here in the attributes, if I scroll around here, there should be is there a width of that? There's not. Let's go to the plot segment. I'm pretty sure I can, okay, here it is. So the glyph itself has properties. So that square, let's explain this a little bit better here. This is a little tricky to figure out here. Okay, so let's think of this glyph here. This is the glyph. And if I zoom in here, this area, inside these lines here, this is the section. This is what the glyph is represented by. By default, there's no width or height of this glyph. It just is. It just sits there. It's trying to auto size something, whatever that may be, right? Now, if I click on the glyph number 1, we actually have a width and a height we can play with here. So I can define a specific height of that glyph, or I can decide what the width of this is. So I believe if we want to shrink those bars down, we can just say the height of this glyph would be maybe like 30. And when I do that, it automatically forces the glyph. And again, glyphs can have data bound height. So if I grab sales price, I think you can add sales price to it. Nope, you can't. So that is a hard property. I thought you could do that. So that was my mistake. You can't add properties there, but you can define what it is. Now, if I pop this back in, let's pin it back over here. You'll now see all the different data bars now have a specified width. And then if I adjust this data, this plot axis, I can then move it smaller. And as I move it here, you can see the different data bars are actually adjusting with the axis there. It's actually doing things. So because again, the centroid of the glyph is still on each of the data points. It's like 6 of them all the way across there. We can add, again, we can add more details here. So let's zoom in on the glyph. I really like this pop out. This pop out is really helpful, especially when you're building like multiple things on a glyph. I'm going to minimize this a bit and see. Here's what I want to do now. Now we can add other data text things. So I'm going to grab a text box. I'm going to put that here. I'm going to put the text on the top, and then we'll add the product name to that. So we'll make the text be the product name. And then I will also add another text box for the bottom, and I'll drag that over here and make those align on the left. And then here I'll put in the sales price. So I'll take sales price and put that at the text area. And then I don't like that formatting, so I'm going to go into the text item box here. Instead of saying 0.1f, I'll put 0.0f and hit tab, and then it rounds it out and gives you no decimal. So when I pin this back in, we now have all of our different data bars. The height, the width of the bar is now adjusting, and now we get the name of that data point and what the value of that data point is. You can do all kinds of other fun things there. Like if you don't like the way I'm formatting them, you can easily go in and on glyph number 1, which we have selected up here, you can actually, let's go maximize it. I can actually change the anchor point and say the anchor point belongs at the end of this. So now the numbers of each of the bars will then automatically float to the end of the data axis, and I can just snap that right there so that at the very end of it, it's automatically snapping there to the end. So again, you can do any kind of crazy cool things here with that as well. We can have other unique data points and rotate them and do all kinds of other interesting things. The only other part here I would make, or something that I would, preference-wise, is when you have data points that actually match in context across a report here, it doesn't necessarily make sense to have VVT or PESE or Montana located twice on this data set. In reality, it would make sense to only label things once to make it less cognitive load on the users. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to use the bar chart down below. Like I said, that would be a column chart. And then I'll use the bar chart here on the left to represent the numbers. And I'll use the bar chart here below to represent the names of the individuals. Now, I will note this too. I think this will be interesting. This bottom bar chart, you see that the words or the names of them actually fall off the edge of the page here. I don't think you'll see them in the main Power BI desktop application. It'll actually cut that off. You won't see it because it's off the borders of the image here. So there's 2 ways you can fix this. You can just grab the bottom border here at the edge and bring that up enough that we can see the data points, and it kind of scrunches everything else. But at least now we have enough border at the bottom there to see the entire name list of all the different locations. Oh, stink. I have music playing and I wasn't listening to it. So let's put that up there a little bit too. See if I can get a little music in here while we're... There we go. Okay. So let's make that really quiet so it's not distracting. Okay. So moving on, we've got this all set up. Let's do one last thing from a stylistic standpoint. I like having colors on things. So I will go into the 2-dimensional plot area, and then now we'll grab the product and add it to the color, hopefully. I think I probably need to do that to the glyph. So let's go to glyph shape 1. And then let's grab, actually, let's minimize the glyph so we can see the layers and then what's going on here. Yeah, here we go. There's the fill. So I'll grab that and I'll match that to the fill. Boom, we get colors. And then over here on this other chart, I'll click on the other area, shape 2, or add the product to that. So now product will also be added there. And now our colors will match across the 2. I don't really care to have the numbers listed twice or the names listed twice. So let's just pick the bar chart will have the numbers. And so I think I can just get rid of this one, erase that one. And then I want the text. We're going to modify that. We'll put the text back to the middle of the bar here. We'll change the anchor point to be inside. Oops. Put the anchor back in the middle there, and then I'll grab the text box to be over there. So we have text like that. And then on this bar chart, I'm just going to erase the text on the bar itself. So I'm going to get rid of it from the glyph. I'll click the remove button. And now I've got 2 different charts. And I think that looks good here. I think we've kind of talked about the different plot segments. Let's go a little bit more into the scaffolds. So if I take this, if I click on this one, I think I can just adjust the scaffold for this one and turn it to a circle. trying to remember how to do this. Okay, let me undo that. Control Z. Okay, good, it works. Okay, so we talked about plot segments. We have a two-dimensional plot segment. We have a two-dimensional plot segment down here, and we have a one-dimensional plot segment over here. These things called scaffolds let you build different dimensions on things. So a scaffold, like a horizontal line, you can click and drag that, and it doesn't really change anything here too much. It just kind of removed my axis off of that thing. So that's essentially, this is a scaffold with a single dimension across the bottom here. We can also change this with a polar scaffold. So this is like, now we're changing how we want to draw this graph. And so I can have a two-dimensional plot segment, meaning a width and a height of something, but then I can rotate it around a centroid, an axis. So take every single data bar and turn it into like a slice of a piece of pie. So if I grab this polar area, polar, and drag it to, actually I'll click it first and then drag it down to this chart area. When I do this, it now allows me to, my dimension is now located around the outside of this graph, and then the height of the bar that we had previously is now being represented by these little heights. Now, if I want to, I can adjust this. I can make it like a half circle. You can go up here to the top area. There's actually little marks here. I'll zoom in because this is hard to see. There's little arrows at the top here. The arrows at the top allow you to open and control the starting point and end points of that. So I can grab these little arrows at the top, and when I do that, I can make it like 75%, right? So this is like 75% of the whole chart, and I can arrange it. Or if I want like a half moon, I can do that here. So now I can have a half moon, and I can adjust this one and bring them down like this. So now I can do like really cool stuff where I have like this kind of like sunrise effect thing, and the bars dimensionally are still there. So I believe this is still a two-dimensional graph or item here. And let's see if we can make the bars. I'm going to go on a limb here and say, let's say I make the shape we have, for the shape we have the height being something. Let's make the width also the same as the sales price. Yeah, and we can do that too. And I believe in here, I can also adjust the spacing between each of them. Actually, that's probably a better option to do on the menu here. So I can go into the menu, and then I can adjust the width of those. So it gives me the start angle, the end angle, the inner radius, the outer radius, all kinds of other options here. If I think I click in there, I can't use my arrow keys to adjust it. So if I do 0.7, that's 70% of is the inner radius, and the outer radius is 90%. So I can go 1 for the outer radius, and it goes all the way to the edge now. And if I want the inner radius to get smaller, I can go like 0.3 or something like that. And that'll go way, way, way into the middle. So you can adjust like the inner radius and outer radius of doing that way. Let's go back to 0.5 on that one. I think I like the outer radius being at full 1. But you'll also notice here each of the glyphs, and again, I'm going to draw this in kind of try to talk to this. Because we changed our glyph actually starts here at the front left edge. And because we defined the width of those bars to be different, it scales from the front edge all the way to this back of the blue edge. And what that little blue wedge is showing you right here, this little blue wedge is actually the spacing gap between each of the glyphs. So there's actually a little bit of a white gap that you see that it's there. So I can actually reduce that, I believe, the gap here. Yeah, here's this property for gap. So if I take the gap down to 0, you'll notice the bars then, when they're the full width. So again, it's kind of doing like a scaling thing here, right? This yellow bar is the largest bar, therefore it has the largest width. It fills out the entire completeness of the pie piece. And that's what it's doing there. Okay. You also have other kinds of layout types here. So again, really getting into the details here. You have sub layouts. Right now we're using this type of, I don't know what the type that is, but here's slices. You get like this array looking thing. I think if I click this one, what does that do? Stack radial. Let's stack it. Doesn't seem to want to, oh, it's lining the middle. That's nice. Oh, you can put the bars in the middle. Oh, geez, there's so much stuff here. This is so cool. Top, you can come up from the top in, so the bar starts at the outside and works its way in. You can go to the middle, where it starts at the middle and walks its way out. Man, there's so many. Like, this is going to open up so many opportunities to build other kind of crazy. Okay, you can start ordering things. You can order it by sales price, descending or ascending, I guess. Doesn't seem to be rendering a difference there. I'll leave it in default order for now because I don't want to muck with it too much. Now this one, I think this is really, this might need to have more data points for it to do that. It doesn't seem to want to be doing that right now. Stacking angularly. So I'll have to do a little bit more homework, maybe play with some more data sets here, but I think if we stacked it radially, it would actually stack each of the data bars. Instead of having it around the radius, it would actually stack it outwards, coming out of that radius. And it's doing like a grid thing here. Those are some really cool options. I just may not have enough data to support all these different visual types there. If you have played with this, oh, radial axis, none. That's probably what my problem is. I probably need some sort of radius axis as well to go in there as well. I'll have to look at that a little bit more. If anyone who's played with this has some videos or has some information or has a YouTube link or a link on the web to go to that, let me know. I'll be more than happy to go visit that and research it a bit more and come back and do a bit more on the scaffolds. One other scaffold type I want to point out here is we've done this kind of, x-axis scaffold and y-axis scaffold. Not a big deal. We just did the radial one. How do you make a circle out of something? The only other one I want to point out here is the polar one. So this is where you can actually draw a curve inside a visual. Let's see if I can grab this one. Yeah, it's only letting me do these 2D plot segments. Okay, so this is going to be really, really weird. When you do this, it lets you draw it. Oh, is it not letting me draw it? Oh, yeah, here we go. So now this is like, you can just scribble on the screen and draw out the line that you want the data to fall on. So same options as we had kind of before. We're kind of just being able to stack things here as well. Yeah, I don't know what the packing does. We'll leave this one alone for now. We can reduce our gap here, so I don't see that it's changing. I must need more data points in here to make that stack or whatever. But the cool part here is you can make it a spiral. You can say how many windings you want and what your start angle would be. So if I draw a spiral, it'll just spiral out everything for you. And so it starts basically curling all the data points together, and they just kind of like walk their way out. This is really good when you want to show like trending over time. So let's say you have 3 years of data and you want to like have each year be another ring of the spiral out. The inner part of the spiral is like the oldest year, and as you walk your way out, the spiral becomes larger. That's kind of a chart style you might want to use for a spiral design. If I click back in here, click on the pencil, I can then just kind of drag my cursor around on the window there. And as I drag my cursor, you'll see that it's actually stretching and making all those data points kind of match. I'll do it again. Click the pencil, make a U, go down to the bottom, and then come up. And then I'll take all the data points and try and chop them and throw them around a U shape. Do it again. I'll just make it like a kind of an inverted U, go up to the top and then come back down, and then it'll adjust that. Kind of cool. It would be nice if they gave you like another option other than dropping your mouse on there, because it doesn't seem to really work all the time perfectly. But I mean, I guess it's kind of getting the point across. I really think the spiral one is interesting. I might go back out to the data set and see if I can find another section of data that we have and see if I can find some more data points, if there's some data points that belong to that. Anyways, so let's this thing's running off the screen a little bit here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to adjust my guides here slightly. And this other chart here looks like it's going the wrong way now. Not sure how it flipped directions. It must have been something that I did earlier. Oh, okay. So it flipped directions because of the glyph that's this one's touching. The glyph is putting the bar to the left as opposed to the right. So I'm going to put the bar to the right. I'm going to move the glyph anchor off of that, and I'm going to move it over here. Oh, it's not letting me do it now. Let me just move these glyphs over. Okay, so I'm just going to have to move the entire glyph. Let's pop this out. Make it large. Make it large. Okay, good. Click this button to, what is it, resize. And then we'll put this over here in the left-hand corner like that. Resize again. And we'll put this in the upper left-hand corner, lock that back in. Okay, resize again. Now it looks good. Pin it back in. Boom. Bars are in. Okay, so now we've got visuals all on the page. Everything seems to fit on this visual. Pretty crazy. It doesn't really tell us what we want, but we're just kind of playing with things right now. I'm going to hit save on the visual so it keeps the state of whatever this is. And then I'm going to click on the back to report. And I'll hit save here again for whatever reason. And then, oh, boom, there it is. So there's our visual. We've got our custom visual here with some curly cues in there as well. And You know, let's see if I can find some data that has some more data points. Let's see if we can make a spiral visual that has more data bars kind of happening in the spiral effect. So what I may want to do here is, let's go look at our financials data. We do have some dates. Let's put them on the page. It looks like we have data per year, but not a ton. Couple days in each year. So 1, 2, it's only 2 years though. All right, well, it probably won't make a ton of sense because we don't have like 365 data points per year, but we'll try it. We'll throw a sales price on there. And I don't like the formatting of this date field, so let me just see if I can change this to that one. Go up to the column tools, click on the format drop-down menu, and then change it to a month, day, year. That looks a little better. All right, now what I'll do, so this is again a very common thing that I'll do first when I work with Charticulator actually basically this was when I was in the web app, is I'll always make kind of a data table first and figure out, okay, what kind of stuff do I want to put on here? This may make sense to me, and I may want to have some other data points. Like maybe, I want the dates to be here. I want the sales price, but maybe I want the color to align to these different products that we have. So now what I'll do is I'll add the product column to this. And so now I get a single date and then multiple products with multiple sales prices, or whatever that would be, the sum of sales prices. So now I've got 2-dimensional columns. Date is dimension, products dimension, and the sales column is now my numerical value. Move that down there, and that looks good. So this is my starting point. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna copy, paste, copy, Control C, click on the panel in the report page, Control V, hopefully, Control C, Control V. Okay, now I got 2 tables, and I'm gonna change this second data table to a Charticulator app. Click the ellipsis. Go into edit. Now we're in, and then we can create another chart. All right, we're going to go straight up polar for this one. So we're going to try, we've already got a 2D plot segment here by default. We're going to go into the scaffold for polar, and we're going to click and drag that into the page here. So now we've got like a rotating axis thing. Let's get a glyph started. So I'm going to click on my mark and drop it in the glyph area. This builds my ring of data points. Now I should have a good amount of these. It looks like it only has, oh, look at this. Wow, look at that. It's got so it's recognizing the data type for dates and giving me all the other items here. Okay, so something that happened in this visual, it automatically brought the product and sales price out of the data area. So by default, it pulled data in. Data came in the visual, but because product is the links and tooltips is the sale price, those are in the wrong areas. So I have to rearrange these, I have to move them around. I'm gonna move product up to date, sales price up to date. Okay, this looks more realistic. Okay, the reason I was showing you how I make a table earlier, every single sliver is a single data point that is in that table that we made previously. It's aggregating on sum of sales price by an implicit measure and then building all the different rings around this. Okay, this is cool. So let's change just off the kicks and giggles here. We're going to click on the shape, and I'm going to change the color to be matching by product. So I'm going to close the visualization panel, minimize the fields panel, and take product and drop it. Let's click it again. Click shape, grab product, and put it on the color for the fill of the shape. Okay, so now we have lots of different colors, but now we're seeing them repeating multiple times. So this is the same product, but now in multiple different areas. Now we can go back into here. Let's see if we can stack radially. Ooh, that looks crazy. Grid. So this must be grouping by date and then by, no, there's different products and different, maybe it's grouping by date and by product. Angular. Well, this is cool. Now that I've got more data in here, it's doing different things. All right, let's go back to, nope, I don't want overlap. I want stack angular like it was doing previously. And I believe we're trying to do the curl, the swirl thing. And that might have not been the angular scaffold. We might actually need to go to the pencil and bring that custom curve in here. Okay, so we got a custom curve in. Okay, now I can hit the spiral. Okay, that was my mistake. I was using the angular scaffold to build the circle, and it was only building a single circle. The custom allows you to have the windings you want. So we can say we want 4 windings, start at angle 180, draw a spiral. Holy moly. This is crazy. So it starts at the very beginning and then wraps its way out for all the different colors. I'm not sure. I think I like this color by product. I might do color by date. So I'm going to change that now. So I'm going to go down to click on the shape, and where it says fill is the first product, I'm going to actually change that to fill as to the date. Okay, this is maybe making a bit more sense. We start at the earliest dates, and the earliest date's going to have the same color, and then it's going to spiral its way out. Now we go down to the plot area, and can I get it to... What does it let me do here on these? Oh, it's drawing stuff. Oh boy. You can have it overlay on top of itself. So this is basically drawing everything on top of itself. You can stack it next to it, like this one. So now it's spiraling the data out. And then I think I need a data point on maybe the height of the bar. Maybe that would be something that would be relevant. Or I could just manually type in what it would be, right? So these bars are kind of like really, really wide. So I might just take the height and just call it like, let's do 10. So now the height of this thing becomes a 10, and it looks like it's doing some kind of weirdo drawing in the middle there. And let's make the width also 10. Now let's not do the width. Delete that. We'll leave that out. So now it's starting at the beginning. So I think the height could be a little bit higher. Let's go 50. Okay, now we're starting at the beginning. So now it starts at the beginning spiral and then kind of walks its way out. And I believe if I go into the shape layer and grab sales price and add it to the width. Okay, so it's making different width segments. So you can see different lengths of those. So I don't think that was what I wanted. I actually think I want sales price on the height. Maybe. Did it let me? Sales price on the height. Doesn't seem like it liked it. Not sure what that's doing. But I think if I had some more time to play with the data here, I potentially could go through and say, how would I want this to spiral its way out and then build out more sections of information there? Pretty interesting. Okay, well, let's, since we run right off the page here, let's see if we can change the spiral. Let's give it less windings. Let's not turn it so much. Let's go like 2 windings, and start angle will be like 9. Let's go 0. Let's draw a spiral. And it's doing some weird, it's really trying hard to draw those inner parts in there. Let's see if I can say start angle. Oh, it's still got 4 windings. 3 windings. Start angle 90. What would that do? Draw a spiral. Yeah, it's having a hard time rendering those very small pie chunks in the very early section of that. They're just redrawing on top of themselves so hard. It's doing something weird there. But outside that, it starts doing these little spiral chunks all the way out, ripping around, out. That's cool. Okay. Well, let's stop playing around with it. Let's get to the chart area here. Let's just change our edges. For this visual, let's just go up to 100 for each of them. Try and center it a bit more. There we go. 100 for the top, 100 for the bottom. I don't want 100 for the bottom. Bottom was fine at 50. Leave that at 50. And the sides, I'll leave them alone. And then I think for the page, looks good enough for me. This probably looks more, this is probably better if it was a square. So I'm just going to drag this thing and just do 50 everywhere. 50, 50, 50, 50. Oh, it looks like it's staying there pretty nice now. Okay, we'll leave it. Looks good. All right, it's a square, it's a spiral, and we've got data points curling around. You can define all those things. And I think that about wraps it up. Those are kind of all the 4 areas of scaffolds. I don't really know a ton about the horizontal line scaffold and the vertical line scaffold. I believe those are just kind of automatically there when you build a plot segment that has a 2D or 1D dimension to that. All right, that's about it. Let's hit save. Back to report. And there we go. There's our spiral. We've got spiral data. Probably needs to be bigger. But again, these are some of the features that we're looking at here, where we can do 2 graphs in the same chart. So this is one chart here with 2 graphing elements on it. I want to get rid of this table, or at least make it smaller. Make the table smaller here. Here's Charticulator vision number 1. This has got the linear, the one-dimension plot segment. Man, it's having a hard time moving. Go up there. And then now we've got a spiral. Well, there you go. All right, some more experimentation inside Charticulator as a custom visual. So check it out yourself if you want to follow these videos. If you like this one, please like and subscribe to Power BI Tips. We're going to do more things. There's a lot more stuff to cover in Charticulator as a internal custom visualization app. We're going to do more there. I'll just kind of get on when I have time, and we'll talk about more things. We'll see if we can build some more cool visuals. If you have any suggestions or if you want to send any images, make sure you comment in the video links. Send me a screenshot or put a little URL of where you found some custom visuals or visuals you'd think you would want to build, and maybe I'll attempt to build some of them. Let's see if we can get some of those things together. Anyways, thank you all very much for kind of hanging out with me, watching me build some stuff here. I'll do some more of these things. It seems like people are enjoying this kind of content. We'll continue on, and we'll keep building stuff in Charticulator. Thank you all very much. Remember to like and subscribe, and we'll see you sometime soon. Thanks.